Dames en heren, ik wil u graag het woord geven aan Patrick Paumen. Patrick will talk about his journey in implants, and I think it's a very interesting story. I'm too chicken shit to do it, so there's always got to be someone that does it. Patrick has a lot of implants. He will tell you about it.
Dank u wel.
So give it up, Patrick Paumen.
Hey. Hi. See you forward. So my name is Patrick Paumen. I'm 33 years old. I live in Heerlen, in the far south of the Netherlands. I'm one of the founders of Hackerspace Xspace. And yeah, let's talk about some disadvantages of mechanical keys and locks. This is the oldest known lock and key. It was found in ancient Egypt. And yeah, there are some disadvantages. You can forget to bring your keys. You can lose your keys. Keys can break. And yeah, another example. This photo might be familiar with some of you, but this photo was taken at a hacker conference, Hacking at Random 2009, of a Dutch police officer. And photo was taken at a distance, and based on the photo, there was a 3D model made of the key, and also printed at the conference. And it was possible to unlock the handcuffs using a 3D printed key. And biometric locks have also disadvantages. Everything you touch, you leave a fingerprints, and you can't change your fingerprints as easily as changing, for example, an implant or a PIN code. And yeah, this talk is about biohacking. There are different aspects of biohacking. There's for example, 3D bioprinting, there's DNA, RNA hacking. Some people, they also have bionics, or some people also experiment with nootropics, where they change their diet or change their sleep pattern to get a healthier life. And they quantify their whole life, how they live. My focus is mostly on implants. In my opinion, it's functional. A bit history about biohacking. Professor Kevin Warwick was the first person with a RFID tag implant. In 2004 at the Bayer Beach Club in Barcelona and also in Rotterdam, the VIP members, they had an implant, an RFID tag implant in their arm to pay for drinks. And in 2005, Amal Grasa had first with 2 RFID tag implants, one in each hand. And he used it to unlock the car doors and doors at home, at the office. In 2010, at the Chaos Communication Congress in Berlin, there was a talk by Left Anonym called Cybernetics for the Masses. And that talk inspired me to start with biohacking. And the following year, in July 2011, I put a small magnet in the back of my hand. And I attempted to put it in the fingertip where it belongs, but I didn't manage to do that. So I put it in the back of my hand instead. And 1 month later, in August of 2011, there was the Chaos Communication Camp. And we were making toys at the camp. It's basically a magnet with a battery and LED tape wrapped around it. And instead of throwing it at an object, I stuck it to the back of my hand, and I could walk around with a small LED. So I had both hands available if I had to go to the toilet, for example. So there's a small overview of non-medical implants. This is what biohacking is about. I'll talk more about these in the next slide. This is an X-ray photo of my hands, and you can see some of my implants. You can see the magnets in fingertips and RFID tags. So first about magnet implants. The fingertips are very rich with nerve endings. They're very sensitive. And if you have a magnet in your fingertip and the magnet is near a magnetic or electromagnetic field, then the magnet reacts to those fields. And the nerve endings in the fingertips, they pick it up. So if I get my magnet implant near a strong magnet, for example in the back of this flashlight, then the magnet in the fingertip, it moves, and I can feel it when it's moving. And when it's near an electromagnetic field, then it gives a tingling sensation. And it's also funny for parlor chicks to pick up objects like a bottle cap or paper clips or coins, screws. These fields, magnetic and electromagnetic fields, they're invisible, of course, and we can't see them or taste them, hear them, smell them. But thanks to these implants, they offer me an extra sense, sixth sense. This is Rich Lee from Utah, from the US. And he also has magnet implants, but he also has them in the tragus. It's the flash in front of the ear. And when he wears a copper coil around his neck, and the coil is connected to an amplifier, and the amplifier is connected to an audio source like a smartphone or MP3 player, and he can hear those audio. That's basically how headphones work. You have a magnet and a coil, and yeah. So without visible headphones, he can still hear audio, and could be useful. This is the Circadia implant. It was worn previously by Tim Cannon from Grindhouse Wetware, and this implant it has Bluetooth and battery and sensors to measure some body, basically collecting data from the body, like body temperature or heart rate. It would send those metrics to his smartphone. After 3 or 4 months, the battery wouldn't charge anymore, so they took the implant out of his body, out of his arm, and then they noticed that the battery was bulging, so they took it out on time. It didn't explode or leak. Yeah, there are some risks involved with biohacking. This is Rob Spence. He's a filmmaker, and at a young age he lost his right eye, and he has some prosthetic eyes, with one with a red LED and another one with a wireless video camera, which he used in a filmmaking project where the camera would see everything he would see from his point of view. And you could even see in the video when he blinks with his eye. This is Neil Harbison, and he is colorblind from birth. And he has an implant in his skull, and with a sort of antenna that hangs in front of his face. The camera, of course, can see colors, and what the implant does, it transforms the colors to an audio frequency, so he can hear what color an object has. The Firefly implant, it's a tritium lighting implant. It glows in the dark, sort of like the exit signs. The North Sense, it's created by Cyborg Nest, and It's basically a compass. In my opinion, it's not an implant because it attaches to piercings, and it's usually one on chest. So when you face north, then the device, it vibrates, and you know which direction is north. But I prefer implants. I prefer devices completely under the skin, so I don't have to worry about forgetting them or the North Star implant. It's also created by Grindhouse Wetware. It has, I believe, a Hall effect sensor. So if you hold a magnet near the sensor, then the 5 red LEDs, they light up for 10 seconds and then they turn off again. And it also has a battery, so after a while these also need to get replaced. And the next version, what they're working on, is that it will also have gesture recognition. So for example, if you make a gesture like this, then it will call an Uber or another action performed by your smartphone. The Seismic Sense implant, it's worn by Moon Rivas, the partner of Neil Harbison. And yeah, with this implant, when there's an earthquake anywhere in the world, then she can feel it through the implant. The implant is connected to seismographs online, and she uses this in performances when she's on stage. And the more active an earthquake is, the more she moves on stage, dancing. Now about RFID tag implants. Right now I have 10 RFID tag implants. RFID, radio frequency identification. Yeah, there are different frequencies and also different protocols that are used by different manufacturers of RFID access control systems. And this is the reason why I have multiple implants. Most of these implants, they're the size of a grain of rice, like 2 millimeter diameter, 12 millimeter long. And the most common place to put these is between the thumb and index finger, because there's mostly tissue here. There's not many nerve endings or veins, muscles. I have an XBT tag implant. It's basically it's a PET ID tag implant, except this one also has a temperature sensor. So if I scan this implant with this RFID reader device, usually used by an animal doctor, a vet, or at an animal shelter, when it scans this implant I have here in my lower arm, then it will display the unique ID number, and it also shows the temperature in the lower arm. And those who've been at the conference 3 years ago, this implant was implanted on stage by Amal Grafstad, by the manufacturer. And yeah, since this is a PET ID tag implant, I also registered myself at a PET registry database. So if you look up the number, then it will mention PET name, Patrick, and type of animal. I had to choose from a list, so I chose primate. The breed, yeah, it was an added box field, so I filled in cyborg. The XEM tag implant, it's also a low frequency RFID tag implant, and it's an emulator tag. It supports different protocols. So, for example, I can use this one to unlock the car doors, and I've made a small demo setup. So this part is basically what I have in my car. This is the RFID access controller. And here I mounted an Arduino, but in my car I use a relay. And this is a door actuator, so it locks and unlocks the car doors. So if I scan this implant, then it locks and unlocks the door.
Yeah.
And also, yeah, I also have another implant here in this hand. It's the same implant except a different protocol, because the manufacturer HID. That's yeah, you'll see it mostly at larger office buildings. It's the same frequency but different protocol, so that's why I have multiple. And I put it in this hand so that I only have to roll down the car window, stick my hand out of the window so to open the road barrier.
On the passenger side.
On the driver's side. Yeah, otherwise I would have to reach up all the way over the steering wheel. And, yeah. The XIC tag implant, it's a high frequency tag implant. Same frequency as NFC uses. Unfortunately, my smartphone doesn't support this, the ISO 15693 protocol, but that's why I haven't implanted it yet. I have one at home. The XM1 Plus implant, it's basically a MiFi Classic. So it's a high frequency RFID tag implant, and it's basically MiFi Classic, like what was used many years ago in the OV chip card. And this implant also has a nice feature. It's called the Chinese Magic Backdoor. And at my hackerspace, they use for the access control system, they use MiFi Classic access cards. And when I asked at the reception desk to add one of my existing implants to their access control system, they couldn't do it. Probably because their system uses 4-byte UID, and this NFC tag implant has a 7-byte UID number, unique identification number. So I got this MiFi Classic implant. I have one here. And what's special about the Chinese Magic Backdoor feature is that you can change the UID number, the unique identification number. So it makes it easy to clone an existing MiFi Classic access card to an implant. I used the Proxmark 3 device to clone it, to change the UID number of this implant. So yeah, never let anyone borrow your access cards because it can be cloned. The XNT tag implant, this is the first implant, RFID tag implant that I have. I have one here, and I use these for example, to unlock my smartphone instead of entering a code, because anyone can look over my shoulder and see what code I'm entering, and also instead of using fingerprints for what I've mentioned earlier, just scan the tag and it unlocks the phone. Another purpose for NFC tags is for some data transfer. For example, I put my contact details on this implant. So if you have an NFC capable phone, and you scan my implant, and you get my contact details: name, email address, phone number. I can also use it to unlock my laptop, where I made this this little contraption. It's an Arduino Leonardo Pro Micro and an NFC module, and I put it in an old Nintendo Game Boy cartridge case. So if I lock my laptop and connect this over USB, then instead of entering my password, I just scan this implant and it unlocks my laptop.
Did that just type the password?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's a Arduino Leonardo. It acts like a HID device, a human interface device.
So your password is stored on the Arduino, or? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we just need to steal the Arduino now?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the UID number of my implant. Yeah.
No, because that's in the Arduino, right? You can just decontrol the firmware that's in there.
Yeah, I'll talk about a more secure way. Yeah, recently I also added two-factor authentication to my laptop, where you have to enter an OTP code, one-time passcode, which I use this implant for, but I'll talk more about that later. So the Flex anti-tag implant, it's basically the same chip as the previous slide, the XNT, except it has a different shape and size. You can see here this implant is flat and rectangular, and most RFID readers, they also have this shape, flat and rectangular. For example, my smartphone. So if I scan this implant, I don't have to search for the sweet spot, for example, to unlock the phone or with this electronic cylindrical door lock from China. It has a low power coil, and when I attempt to open the door with this implant, it's difficult to read. But if I use the Flex NT, then I can lock and unlock the door. The Flex DF implant, it's basically MyFair DashFire. I don't have this one yet. Yeah, it's more commonly used now for access control because it also supports cryptography. There can be applets installed in it. The Vivo key. This is basically a contactless Java card, a smart card. I have a prototype here in my arm, and at the moment I have 3 Java applets running on it. Yeah, I know. But I use one applet to generate OTP codes. For example, to log on my laptop. I use it for the key password manager, where not only I fill in the passphrase, but also 3 OTP codes generated by the implant. Or if I log into online services. There's also a Java applet for PGP, for encrypting data, encrypting emails, signing. And since this is the same type of chip as in bank cards, hopefully in the future I can also use it for contactless payments. Which at the moment, in theory, I could order a second bank card, remove the chip from the bank card, add a coil, and add coating to the chip, and then put it under the skin. Except there are currently some limitations with contactless payments. If you have multiple small transactions below 25 euros and you reach a limit of 50 euros, then you then the terminal will ask you to insert the bank card into the terminal and enter a PIN code, which is not possible, of course, if I have it under the skin. But yeah, hopefully in the future. Because now I know that ABN AMRO Bank in the Netherlands, they also do a trial with wearables, with NFC rings or wristbands, watches. So there should be an exception for this. There have been some safety tests performed on these implants to make sure they're safe. For example, people always ask, isn't the implant going to break because it's a glass tag? And yeah, if you throw it on the floor, it breaks, of course, it's glass. But when it's under the skin, the tag implant is very well protected by the tissue under the skin. So nothing happens if I hit against this table repeatedly. And there are some biohackers who also do martial arts or rock climbing, deep sea diving. Another common question, what if you need to go in an MRI? Yeah, I read in an article online about magnet implants, that if you go in an MRI, it doesn't feel comfortable, but they don't fly out of the skin. And these RFID tags, they have been tested in an MRI up to 7 Tesla and nothing happens. So I'm not worried. Methods for implanting these devices. It depends on the size. These RFID tags, like the size of a grain of rice, they come in an injection syringe preloaded, and you can order a kit online, and it comes in the injection syringe comes in a sterile package, and you take it to a piercing studio, for example, Piercing Studio Utrecht. So in the package that you receive from online, you have the injection syringe in a sterile package, you have a sterile drape, latex gloves, a band-aid, a sterile gauze, chlorhexidine to clean the skin. And yeah, you take it to the piercing studio, and they'll do it. They have experience with this. The first one, the XNT tag, yeah, I've done it myself. I didn't find a piercer ready to do it yet, but I did it myself, and I improvised because you need 2 hands for the procedure. You need 1 hand to lift the skin, and you need another hand to insert the injection syringe. So I used a clothes bag to keep the skin lifted. Wasknijper. And then if you remove this, I'm not going to do it now, don't worry, but when it's inserted under the skin and when the syringe is retracted, then the tag comes out of the needle and it remains under the skin. And you can see it attaches to my finger. And larger implants, of course, require a scalpel and dermal separator, and stitches. Implant coatings. These RFID tag implants, they have a borosilicate or soda lime coating. The implants like the Flex NT and the Vivo Key, they have Paralane C coating. It's also bioproof. The magnet implants, these 4 I have in the fingertips, they have a titanium nitrate coating. The first one I did myself in 2011. I used Sugru as coating. And it also happens to be bioproof. And I haven't tried with hot glue myself yet, but apparently it's also bioproof, so the body doesn't reject it. There are some advantages and hardware limitations. Because these implants, they're very small, and they have a very small copper coil that acts as the antenna. You need to get very close to the reader, which is also an advantage because you can't read the implants from a large distance. And also, these are passive devices. They don't contain a battery, so I don't have to worry about replacing them. This device, it's basically a field tester. It's also inside a glass cylinder, and there are two versions. There's the low frequency version or the high frequency version. And this, the low frequency version, I recently had it implanted in my arm, in my hand. So if a low frequency RFID reader is near the implant, then it will light up. And with this field tester, you can it's basically manufactured to find out what the maximum reading distance is of an RFID reader. So the closer it gets, the more it lights up. And also the orientation, because there's a coil inside the tag and there's a coil inside the RFID reader, what the best position is for the tag to hold. Because there needs to be magnetic coupling between those two devices.
So it's saying do not implant this.
Yeah, I know, it says that, but because it has a very thin wall, I did it anyway. So. And so far it hasn't rejected or hasn't broken, so. Yeah, but Amal says not to implant this, so. We won't. Another common question, what about airport security? What if you need to go to security at the airport? And yeah, at the moment I have 15 implants in total and I don't have any problems at all. For metal detector, I don't have any problems. There's too little metal in these implants, they don't detect anything. And also the full body scanner, it penetrates the clothing, but it doesn't penetrate the skin. So nothing is detected there either. A common question about laws. As long as you experiment on yourself, on your own body, you're completely fine. But if you put an implant in another person, then it's illegal. So that's why I suggest going to a piercing studio to get implants done. Not only for legality reasons, but also for, well, they know how to modify your body. I do have some demo videos that I'd like to show you. My car is parked outside, but here's a video, so we don't have to go outside in the cold. So that's my car. The door's closed, and if I scan my implant, it unlocks the door. That's the road barrier I mentioned earlier. It's the same building, so same RFID access control system to unlock the doors. Yeah, logging on my laptop, I already demonstrated this, but this is at my home, so doors closed. And an office downstairs. It's the building at where the hackerspace is, the former CBS building. It's a little table. It's a log table from IKEA, and yeah, I show in the video. I put these videos on YouTube, but I mentioned in the video it's perfectly with size for switches and other network devices. And there where you see the sticker, I also put an Arduino and NFC module there. So if I scan my implant, then the RGB LED strip powers off, and if I scan it again, it powers on again. Which is nice for domotica, home automation. And since each RFID NFC tag has its own unique ID number, I can program the Arduino that if I scan one tag, then it lights up green, or another tag it lights up blue, or in this case a rainbow pattern. And then in the video I show how I mounted this. It's not that special. Just a hobby project at Backspace. Some NeoPixels and Arduino. That's it. NFC module. Back to the talk. And yeah, that's it. I don't know if anyone has any questions.
So I guess you got your implants at different times, but what usually happens when I get my keychain out is that I spend like 5 minutes looking for the correct key. Do you have the same thing with your implants? That you're just wondering like, what chip was it again that opens this?
I use this. I use my implants every day and on a daily basis. I don't have this problem really. It's like muscle memory. I know which implant I need to unlock my phone or doors at home.
You never got two at the same time where you sort of like had a adjustment period?
Only in the beginning, when I only recently replaced the cylindrical lock with an electronic cylindrical lock. At the beginning I had a short learning period, so adjustment period. Instead of searching for my keys, oh yeah, that's right, I have this implant now, so I no longer need the keys. Yeah, short adjustment period, but your brain learns quickly not to need these things anymore. One exception for my car, I still need a key to start the car, and also for the fuel cap. I still need a key, but that's another project.
Other questions? Yep.
So I like this idea of unlocking something with your hand, but I don't like 10 implants. What would you suggest as the most universal, versatile implant that you could reprogram, or that works on most common systems?
Yeah, most commonly, I think NFC is getting more and more common. So I would go for the Flex NT tag. Looking at the future, I would wait for the Vivo key. Right now, it's still a prototype and it's still in development. But since it has a chip, NXP Smart MX2 chip, the final product will have a cryptographic chip. So I look at those two. But maybe you already use RFID key fobs or access cards before you order implants online. First, you need to figure out which frequency my existing RFID access controller uses at your home or office, and then find out the right frequency and protocol, and then order one.
Yeah, but it's not like that there's one universal. You need a specific one, of course, for every for every specific implementation. Or can it be solved with software, with the Vivo key? Like, of course, there are frequency differences, but are there common enough frequencies that multiple systems could be supported by a single key or by a single device?
I think, for example, HID, the brand, the manufacturer, I think they also have multi-class RFID readers where they support both frequencies. For example, both the low frequency 125 kilohertz and high frequency 13.56. And other than that, I mean, at my apartment, I can decide myself which RFID technology I built into the doors or in my car in this case.
Yeah, but it's like I don't want one feather lock in. Like if you have something programmable, it's like, oh, this new fancy door opener which totally meets my other requirements, and I can reuse my existing hardware instead of cutting myself again.
Yeah, I would go for NFC, suggest a Flex NT or XNT tag.
Cool, thanks.
Other questions? Yep. Over there. Oh.
Would there be a possibility that you might get knocked out and someone clones your chip and enters your house?
There's a possibility, sure. Sorry?
Cuts off your head.
Well, I guess a security guard, there's a possibility, but first they also need to figure out where I live, which implant I use for which door, honestly, when I get home from the conference, I can just reprogram some of my implants. For example, this is a low-frequency RFID emulator, and it has a keypad. I bought this device in China. It has a keypad, and it can emulate RFID tags. So with this emulator device, using the keypad, I can just enter a random unique ID number, and using a cloning device such as the Proxmark 3, I can clone from the emulator device to an implant. So when I get home, I generate a number, clone and overwrite the implant, and also change the removed entry from the RFID access controller in my car, and add the new number. And you can do this daily, weekly, monthly.
Do you currently have one of your RFID tags programmed for your hotel room?
No, I don't have a hotel room, so tonight I'm driving home again.
Do you ever did you ever encounter a tag that you couldn't copy?
No.
And I know
the MyFair Ultralight, for example, the 7-byte tags, such as the XNT tag. The XNT doesn't have a UID changeable feature. I can't clone that one yet, but using the Proxmark 3 I can also emulate tags. High frequency or low frequency. So
I know you also do a lot of do-it-yourself. You told us the first implants you did it all by yourself because there were no tattoo shops or piercing artists that could help you. Did you also did one of the bigger implants yourself?
No. I went to piercing studios for this.
Yeah, what's a dermal separator? How does that work? Is that just a knife, wiggle it around, or is it special device?
First an incision is made with a scalpel, and then with a dermal separator it separates the there are different layers of skin, so it separates a layer of the skin, and so there's a pocket for an implant, and when the pocket is large enough, then the implant is shoved under the skin, and then stitches.
And sedation?
Well, that's the legality problem. Officially, tattoo piercing shops are not allowed to use local anesthetic like lidocaine. What you can do, you can order the pain management kit from Dangerous Things. You can order it online and have it shipped to you, and then you can inject the lidocaine yourself before you enter tattoo piercing shop. So there's that loophole you can use, or you can use ice to numb the site, or a lidocaine patch. But the small RFID tags with the injection syringe, that doesn't hurt much. It's like when you pinch the skin for a moment. That's it.
Thank you. Other questions from people in the audience? If there are no more questions, I would like to thank you for your talk. Very interesting.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.